So I'm gonna try to show the best way to farm Ren and exotics like the fastest you can. Um, and the spec that I use to do it seems to be the most optimized. It's more kind of like in-game leveled, and having some in-game gear. I'm spec for bow. Mainly, a lot of this is increased damage. This is kind of just like a spec, my bow spec that I use to play with. Um, Nothing like crazy. It's kind of just like choice, but it increases your damage by a good amount. Um, Having this bow agility is useful, 10% movement speed, and then having this survival also 10% movement speed. Um, Plyometrics is super good to have because when you jump and you're going down a hill, you'll actually regenerate stamina faster than you lose it, so you can travel a bit quicker. Um, I have sea creature health bars, which is nice. Um, you can also have that in the solo tree here. See animal health bars. In your solo spec, you want to have another 10% movement speed. You want to have stamina increased, stamina regeneration. Um, Same thing over here under construction, ready to work is another 30% stamina regeneration. Um, I have spec for bow to do more bow damage, and then um, all the rest of it's kind of just like your choice. As far as like your gear goes, um, the ST700 set is what I prefer because you have stamina regeneration on it, and you also get plus projectile damage, which applies to arrows and will allow you to do more damage for that. Um, Under the workshop, you want to have the Larkwell compound bow, um, and then you want to have the Naris and Suit because you can have three modules. In those modules, you can stack 3 speed, so you can get 15% more movement. And then the survival backpack, you get 5% more movement. Also, um, some fall resistance, which you can get when you're running like down the hill. For this particular mission, you'll be fighting like a giant boss worm. Um, you can do like poison vaccine, but really you'll be close enough to range to where he's gonna melee. You'll bait like the melee attacks. Um, you'll want to have. It's preferable to have 2 sets of arrow bundles. Once you learn the Larkwell arrows are the best, but if you run 2 sets, it costs 100 Ren each time you do it. With this spec, you can kill the worm in just 1 stack, but you have to every shot critical, and you don't have any room for error. So, what I end up doing is running a set of these because I can a lot of times kill them in this set, but if not, I have a backup set of these, which only costs 10 to craft, so you're not losing like a lot of Ren each time. If you're not spec'd for bow, I'd go ahead and grab 2 sets of these bundles, um, and just take those. And then you can have a knife. You don't really need it. You don't need any oxygen tank or water or anything like that because you're going to be running through this pretty fast. The fastest I can farm it in is 7 minutes, and then probably the slowest like is like 8 to 9, depending on how far back the pod spawns. Um, I won't do a timer or anything, but it'll go pretty fast. So you'll have that as your loadout, um, and then in the prospect you'll be under Olympus, and then you'll be over here. You'll have to unlock it, but you'll do migrating sand survey. You'll do hardcore. You can cheese it if you end up dying. A trick you can do is you can go to your character selection and you can remove from Prospect for now. Eventually, I imagine it'll get patched, and there's a good chance that this farming strategy gets patched because it's kind of busted how fast you can actually do it. But I'll hop in here and I'll kind of just run through it and explain it as I go. It's definitely the fastest way you can farm. It's a lot faster than deep vein extraction, which was kind of the old way of doing it. And since they removed the exploit of where you can do unstuck in like a cave, you'll have to run back on deep vein, which kind of sucks. So essentially what's going to happen is you're going to have 3 spawn points that you'll have to put survey beacons at. The first one will be here. You can mark them with a marker, but once you've done it a few times, there's a few like points of interest you can see, and you can just drop the beacon like without having a marker down. So grab all your gear, grab the portable beacons, consume your arrow stacks, and then you can see first one's here, so we'll start running towards it. And since we're spec'd with the 10% speed on the bow, we'll just keep that out so we run faster.
They want data and dropped a bunch of geodetic equipment at points marked on your map. Locate them, set them up.
And there's three spots where you put these beacons down, and then after that you go into the middle of them and you essentially fight the worm boss. And it's goes pretty fast, especially when you're spec'd for bow. I'll kind of show you like the pattern and try to talk through it as I'm doing it. I'll probably die and look foolish, but we'll see. But as my stamina is getting low, like you kind of get used to how much stamina you need. I don't need to get it all the way full because I'm gonna run up here to this ridge and I'll start going downhill, and I should be able to regenerate my stamina back. I say that, but I was off just a bit. So you can see your marker for where your beacon goes, but there's actually a couple points that you can just look at to know where the beacon will go down. But when you're starting off, you can put the marker down just fine. But you can see up here there's some rocks on the ground. There's like a group of like 3 rocks, and this is where the first beacon will go. And then after that, you'll turn and head north, start going towards the second beacon, and I'll pull that up on the map and show you here shortly when I get some stamina recovering, because we're trying to do this fairly fast in the video so we don't make a video that's too long. If you put some time into this, you can definitely get all the currency and stuff that you need to get all your workshop items fast. We can see, I'll put a marker, it's right here, but there's a few stones that you can look at over here to know where you're when you're at the area. Like these 3 stones up here are like an indicator of where the next area will be when you get close to those. And then the third spot, we're gonna turn and head kind of southeast. You'll run up this ridge. You can see over here, spawns here. And we'll get up on this ridge, so then we can start jumping and regenerating our stamina as we're going down. I'll take a little fall damage here and there, but nothing like too crazy. You don't want to try to take a ton because you might take a little damage on the boss fight. And after this, we're going to go to the middle where the boss spawns, and as the boss comes out, I'll explain that kind of as we do it. There's a few points where you can shoot for critical, even if his mouth isn't open. And you can get in like some good damage, like without waiting too long, and you can take them down pretty fast. So once you're over here towards like that rock and ridge, that's your last beacon. Then we'll cut back over here. Try to avoid like animals to aggro, but if you do, like, you're generally gonna outrun them. You can see the boss will spawn here. Hyenas are kind of dumb. They just kind of ignore you. And right up here on this ridge is actually where the boss will be in front of me. So when the boss comes out, I like to position myself on this side. You can shoot him right when he comes up for a critical, and then he'll open his mouth and you can shoot him. And then we'll want to try to get him close for like melee range. And you can get a few shots in. You can see if I didn't miss there, I would have got 4 shots in. And you can just kind of get some extra shots in as he lunges towards you. As long as we're baiting him, he's not going to spit poison at us. But we can generally get 3, sometimes 4 if you're like really skilled. And then when he opens up to growl, you can shoot. And as he starts to lunge, there's a brief second where you can shoot him for a critical too. And you just kind of go forward, bait the melee, and then just like that, nice and easy. Mark your pod. You don't really need to even do that. Once you've done it, you'll know where you spawn.
I'd say you succeeded.
It takes a little bit of practice, but if you keep in melee range, the boss won't ever like spit the poison chunks at you or the big yellow chunk. And it's just kind of easier to get more arrows in on them. And you can see in the bottom corner, I used, out of my 50 arrows, I used the stack, which is 25 plus 2 of this other stack. And that's because I had missed a couple shots. And that's why I generally run like a cheaper set of arrows, because you don't need to run 2 of the Larkwell sets because it's kind of overkill if you're spec for bow. If you're not spec for bow, you don't do quite as much damage, so I'd recommend using the 2 good arrow sets. But I would definitely like try to spec for bow, and then spec all your stamina regen, any bow damage that you can get. There's a nice one that causes like a bleed effect. It's like a 10% chance when you get 3 points in it, so that can do like a good amount of damage on the boss too. But yeah, it's super easy. You could probably look at like the time of the video, see how long it took. It's not necessarily the fastest run I've had, but it wasn't like the slowest probably. The pod was in the back. It can spawn in the back of the lake like over there as well, which will slow you down some more. Some of them will actually spawn in the front of the lake, so you can get like really fast runs in. And yeah, it's just super easy to farm your Ren and exotics. We'll return to station, and then you can see we get 400 Ren, 200 exotics, and you average like, you can say probably like 9 minutes for each run, based on like going back into orbit and then grabbing some new arrows, selecting it again. But yeah, hopefully this helps some of you guys farm, because I know a lot of these missions are unforgiving and it's kind of annoying when you're trying to farm exotics and stuff, and a lot of these missions require you to like build a lot of like tier 3 and tier 4 stuff. This one you can just hop in, get to business. If you want to save a little Ren, and you already have these arrow sets like I do, you can buy those. But obviously if you don't have them, they cost 500 to make, so you'd have to at least run like over 10 runs to recoup your value of purchasing that. If you're not going to farm a lot, you can just stick with the Larkwell arrows. You could try to stab the worm when he lunges, but he hits you for a decent amount if you're if you get meleeed with them, so I'd probably just try to avoid that, and just stick with the arrows. And I wouldn't try to like retrieve them from them or anything, because you're probably just gonna end up dead, and then you'll have to remove your character from prospect and you'll just waste more time. But yeah, I think you could probably do this with like a lesser bow. If you're like me and made the Zhang Hu bow like prior to the Larkwell being made, you could probably beat it with this. It's gonna take longer because you're gonna do less damage. Um, the ST armor set's good to have. You don't need to have it. Then the other armor sets will work just fine. You could technically, I'd probably at least have one armor set, but yeah. That's it in a nutshell. Hopefully help some of you guys out. And I'll try to start posting like some more videos on YouTube because I've been slacking. Anyways, thanks for stopping by.